welcome back Consumer Law 101 viewers and students. We're here today with our basic video number 3, the ABCs of Credit Reports, Part 1, Who are the main players? I'm your course instructor, Attorney Aaron Swift, the CEO and Managing Partner of Swift Law North. All right, today's agenda, we're going to be talking about the main players in the credit reporting system. That includes credit reporting agencies, CRAs, furnishers, lenders, creditors, landlords, utilities, collections companies, debt buyers, the users, and then consumers. Talk about those in more detail. All right, so first let's talk about credit reporting agencies. As you've already heard me use this term, the big three. Those are your standard consumer debt credit reporting agencies, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Interchangeably, these are often called credit bureaus, credit reporting agencies, consumer reporting agencies. No matter what you call them, they're fantastically wealthy. In 2021 alone, the big three generated $13.3 billion in revenue. That's with a B, ladies and gentlemen. And in 2022, just 2 years ago, half of the total revenue came from outside the traditional consumer market segment. And that the traditional segment would be general loans, applications. But these other types of reports that we're going to talk about in later videos, employment data reports, employments about medical issues, which is scary, a whole other host of things that these companies do that we barely even know about. And for more information, see our basic video number 7. All right, so we had the credit reporting agencies or the consumer reporting agencies, which are generally the big three. Now you have the furnishers. Furnishers are the companies that, it sounds like, they furnish the information to the credit reporting agencies. So like a lender would be furnishing information about your balance or your on-time payments. Same thing with a creditor. Your landlord might be reporting past collections amount allegedly owed. Same thing with utilities. They could be reporting whether or not you owe money for back equipment. Then you have third-party furnishers. These could be debt collectors or collection trade lines. That could be, for example, Hunter Warfield. Giving an example of a furnisher earlier, Capital One would be a furnisher. They are a lender or a creditor. Then you also have not just third-party furnishers, you have third-party junk debt buyers or third-party, collectors. These are companies that buy portfolios of debt. We're going to talk about them in more detail. But an example would be LVNV. And then there are other furnishers of information for your credit reports. For example, if there's any public information like a bankruptcy, that information is reported by LexisNexis generally. And there are others. So we just want you to understand in these basic videos the main players. So first we talked about the CRAs, the consumer reporting agencies. Now we've talked about the furnishers, who gives the information, who furnishes the information to the CRAs. So the next big group of players is the users. These are the people, companies, parties that use consumer credit reports. So first of all, users must have a permissible purpose under the FCRA, and that's the Fair Credit Reporting Act. We're going to talk about that later. For example, a court order, subpoena, grand jury. You could be instructed in writing. Another thing that could be used is someone determining eligibility for a license, like a financial license in the financial space. Sometimes you have to qualify to get such licensing, and you may have to have a certain credit score, not be in certain collection situations. Credit reports can also be used by state agencies to determine payment of child support and even report child support, even though so-called, quote, experts online say otherwise. And lastly, you can use credit reports for debt collection purposes, again, despite so-called experts saying otherwise. We're going to talk a lot about so-called experts in these videos a lot because it's a space that's filled with a lot of abuse, and we're trying to help and educate consumers here. All right, speaking of, that was a nice segue into the last group here, the consumers. That's us. As I talked about in the last video, consumers are the product. Think of if we were a company or a factory, what are the widgets? What's being sold? It's our data. It's information about our credit scores, income, where we live, even down to qualifying for certain insurances when you're talking about medical credit reports. In a lot of ways, we're the innocent victims here. I didn't generally approve of Experian having my information. They just do because they get it from other parties that I may or may not contract with. For example, credit cards and the card member agreement, but other times not, like medical debt collections and so on and so forth. But it's just so important that we understand as the consumers, we're the product here. There's billions and billions of bits of information shared every day, month, year about us, bought by companies to investigate us, to make decisions about us. And we are absolutely the product here. One court, one judicial law judge in that court described corporations and the credit systems as, quote, trafficking in the personal lives and personal information of every American citizen. And it is a grave responsibility. And that's a really illustrative kind of passage because that was written by a judge. And it really is these companies trafficking in our personal information. All right, so what are the best practices? Again, you're in the best place. Consumer Law 101 is meant to be educational and the foundation for any litigation that goes through Swift Law North. But now we're at a place where hopefully you're able to regularly monitor your official consumer credit reports. Now you have a better eye towards even understanding the players in the industry. And then third, like I'm going to say a lot throughout these videos, if and when you find errors on your credit reports, reach out. These cases can lead to deletions off of credit reports, debt forgiveness, and even life-changing money. And lastly, another consumer best practice is, as we're talking about the players in this space, I did leave one group of players out, which are credit repair companies. They don't deal directly with the consumer credit reporting agencies in terms of giving them information, but there's certainly a set of players that we're going to talk a lot about because there are some good ones and then there are mostly some very bad ones. So one of the best practices, just don't fall for these scams as you're getting into this space, as you're trying to learn more, and see our basic video number 9 when we talk about the most common myths told by credit repair companies. Okay, as I always end with these videos, we'd love to hear from you. If you'd like more educational content, visit consumerlaw101.com. If you have questions about potential litigation, you think there are errors on your credit report, please visit www.swiftlawnorth.com. Thanks, and we look forward to having you in future videos.